Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to AlphaBiolabs breakfast webinar entitled Legal DNA Testing. It's great to have so many of you join us this morning. Thank you very much for your time. In terms of introduction, my name is Andrew Priestley, and I'm the marketing manager for the legal sector here at AlphaBiolabs. And I'm joined this morning by my colleague, Casey Randall. Casey is our head of DNA testing. So she has extensive experience of all types of DNA testing in the UK. In terms of the agenda this morning, we will keep it to within the 30 minutes. So Casey will lead the webinar with myself acting as your facilitator. Casey will start by just going over what we mean by DNA, what is DNA, and then she'll talk about the most common legal DNA tests that we do here at AlphaBiolabs. And then we'll focus on the latest developments and challenges in DNA testing at the present time. We will, at the end, have a short Q&A, questions and answers session. So please use the Q&A function to ask any question that you have. You can feed that through at any point during the next 30 minutes. We will do our best to answer as many questions as we can, given time at the end. If not, what we will do is we'll send an email to you tomorrow with a recording of the webinar and also answers to any question that's asked today. So please do take advantage of that. We want to make it as interactive as possible. So just use the Q&A function at any point, send your questions through to us, and we'll answer those towards the end of the webinar. We'll also issue some interactive polls during the webinar. So again, please do get involved in that. They're quite short and sweet, just normally one question with a choice of answers. Your feedback is really invaluable to us at Alpha. So please do get involved in that as well. That would be great. Okay, so let's get started then. We'll start with an opening poll, which you should see a question appear on your screen in a moment. I'm just going to launch that. So a bit of a technical question to start off. How many pairs of chromosomes do we carry in a single body cell? And you've got three choices there, 8, 23 or 45. And I'm just going to give you a few moments to answer that. So lots of responses coming through, which is great, and a real mix of answers as well. So how many pairs of chromosomes do we carry in a single body cell? Just give you a few more seconds. I think most of you have answered that now. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll now. And I'll just share the results with you. So how many pairs of chromosomes do we carry in a single body cell? 8% of you think it's 8 pairs. 70% of you think it's 23, and 23% of you think it's 45. Well, the 70% of you are indeed correct. It's 23 pairs of chromosomes that we carry in a single body cell. And Casey will expand on that a bit further in a moment. So thanks very much for contributing to that opening poll. I'm going to stop sharing that now. And with that, I will hand over to Casey.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, so just to carry on from that, we do have 23 pairs of chromosomes, so there are 46 in total, and we get 50% of them from each parent. So one chromosome from each parent, 23 pairs makes up the full genome. So what is DNA? It's a really long and complex molecule that's found in the nucleus of most cells, and it's unique to each individual. So the majority of your DNA will code for essential functions, just your body regulating itself. And this is all controlled by genes. But between the genes, there are regions that are what we call non-coding. And within these genes, because they're not coding for anything specific, they can actually be very variable. So we call them hypervariable because we see so much variety in there. And these are the sections that we look at when we're doing these DNA tests. This test is the same type of test that is used for the National DNA Database. So they use the same method and the same markers to individualize people, to be able to differentiate them between one another. And we can use DNA to determine whether individuals are related, because, as we said earlier, 50% of it will come from each parent. So I'm going to talk now about the most common types of legal tests that we carry out at AlphaBiolabs. And the main ones are the parentage tests. So this is a paternity test, testing whether a man is the true biological father of a child, and a maternity test, testing whether a mother is the true biological mother of the child. So we see these scenarios every day. This is the majority of what we do. It can be as simple as, is this man the father of the child? Because it's a CSA or child maintenance case, or it could be something more complex where there are multiple alleged fathers, and we can do some quite complex scenarios, where the tested men are full brothers. We see that quite often. I've put there that the mother isn't always necessary, so you can proceed with the test with just a father and a child, and this test will produce the most conclusive results. So when we look at a father and a child, they have to share 50% of their DNA, otherwise they are not a match, and we would exclude that man as being the parent of that child. We can also do sibling tests, so it's not always practical to do a paternity test. The alleged father might be deceased, he might be overseas, he might be unavailable or even unwilling to participate in the test. So there are other tests that we can offer, the first one being a sibling test. And this will allow us to establish whether individuals are likely to be full siblings with both parents in common, half siblings with one parent in common, or they might be unrelated with no parents in common. Something that people often don't know about sibling tests is that we can do it with more than 2 individuals. So we could have a group of siblings. Often people might know that child A and child B are definitely full siblings and there's no question about their paternity, but they want to know, is C a full sibling or is C only a half sibling sharing the mother? Something else that we can do is we can include that mother if she is willing to take part in the test, and that will help us to get a more conclusive result, because what we can do is we can remove the maternal contribution of DNA, leaving only behind the paternal contribution, which makes it a lot easier to analyse and gives us more strength really on the evidence as to whether these people are related or not. If the result is inconclusive, which can sometimes happen with sibling cases, we can analyse more DNA markers. We can include additional sample donors like the mother or additional siblings to help us to get a conclusive result. The next test is the aunt or uncle test, very, very similar to the last one. If the alleged parent is unavailable, that his brothers or sisters are able to provide a sample. Just like before, you could have multiple aunts or uncles taking part in the test to help really build up that family tree. Again, the mother is really useful. If you have a sample from the mother, if the mother is available, then by all means try and include her if possible. The only stipulation on this is that the sample donors that give profiles must be full siblings of the alleged parent. If it's only a half sibling of the alleged parent, they're not going to have enough DNA in common, which might make it look like a false result. We might say, no, they don't look like they're related to each other. And it's just because they're a half sibling and not a full sibling. And then the last one I want to talk about in this section is the grandparent test. So this can allow us to establish a relationship between a person and either one or both of their alleged grandparents. We do a statistical calculation to work out the likelihood of that result. And again, it's a really strong and powerful test if that alleged parent isn't available.
Great, thanks, Casey. So I'm just going to launch a second poll now. Before I do that, just a reminder, please do, if you have any questions, please do start to enter those into the Q&A function, which you should be able to see there on the Zoom website, which we're using today. So please do put your questions through to us. Okay, second poll then. Again, it's just one question. I'm just going to launch that now. You should be able to see that on your screen now. So Casey's just been talking about complex relationship testing. So which type of test of the choices there would you say produces the least inconclusive results? The least inconclusive results. You've got 5 choices there. You've got full sibling, half sibling, aunt or uncle, single grandparent, or both grandparents. I'm just going to give you a few moments to answer that, please. Lots of responses coming in and lots of choices of answer as well. Okay, just give you a few more seconds. I think most of you answer that now. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to end that poll now. And I'll just share those results with you. So the question was, in complex relationship testing, which type of test produces the least inconclusive results? And you can see there we've got a real mix of answers. Most popular answer there was full sibling. 42% of you went for that option. Half sibling 24%, aunt, uncle 20%, single grandparent 8%, and both grandparents just 6%. Well, the correct answer is actually both grandparents. So well done to the 6% of you that answered that correctly. And again, Casey will expand on that in the next part of the webinar. So just stop sharing my poll there. Thank you very much for that. And back to Casey.
Yep, so the answer was both grandparents. What's unique about doing both grandparents in comparison to all of the other tests is that what you can do is if you take the profile of the mother and the father, the grandfather and the grandmother, sorry, you can work out whether it's possible for them to have had a son who has then gone on to produce this grandchild. And that's unique. We can't do it in any of the cases. It only works when you've got both grandparents. So it does result in the least inconclusive results. All of the others have about the same chance of getting an inconclusive result. It's reasonably low. It's around about 20% of them, but there are things that we can do to help combat that. So yeah, well done to those people who got it right. I've put in a slide here about the complex relationship test results. Because they're reported in a slightly different way, it isn't a 99.99% probability of paternity or a paternity exclusion, which are normally quite straightforward and easy to understand. With complex relationships, we perform this biostatistical calculation and we will report the results as either supportive, and this is any result with a score of over 10. This will show us that there is good evidence that a relationship exists between these individuals. It will either be not supportive, and this is where the result is less than 0.1, or it might be inconclusive that falls within 0.11 and 9.9. This is where there's not enough genetic evidence to say one way or the other. And this is why if we do an extended study, if we add more DNA markers to that test, we will then have more genetic evidence that will help to push the result one way or the other, hopefully, and get you that conclusive result. I've also included the reports that get issued. So this is a standard legal report. It will explain the testing that has been carried out. It will provide a statement to the results, and the evidence will be included within that statement, and it will also provide you with a conclusion. It's really nice and easy to understand, and it gives you all of the genetic profiles as well. We also offer a statement of witness report. This is more detailed. It will contain information about the expert witness that's written your report, their qualifications and their experience. It will have technical information in it about the test. It'll include all details about the chain of custody. It'll include the photographs and the IDs that were taken at the time of collection. And it will also include the results table with all of the markers that have been tested and the results. So it's up to you which one you choose. Different people choose to use them for different reasons. As I say, this one's slightly more detailed, so it might be worth doing this in certain scenarios. You guys will be the best judge of that. Now we're going to move on to developments in DNA testing. And the first one I wanted to talk about is next generation sequencing. So it's also known as NGS, or massively parallel sequencing, MPS. This is the newest and most powerful tool that we have for relationship testing. And it's only just becoming affordable to be used in relationship tests. It's previously been very, very expensive. And the technology is very, very new still. So this technique allows us to see the DNA profile in high resolution. We're looking at this down to the sequence level. We can see single base pair differences between individuals. So it's really, really exciting if you're a DNA scientist like me. Essentially, this method will help to enhance what we can achieve with DNA testing, and it can really help out with these complex scenarios to resolve these really complex questions, because we can see that an allele 10 in me and an allele 10 in you is not necessarily the same version of allele 10, because we can see all the different variations, and therefore we can conclude that you and I are not related because our DNA doesn't match at the sequence level. So it's really, really exciting. And one of the ways that we apply this at AlphaBiolabs is with prenatal testing. This is our newest offering, and it allows us to determine paternity of a child before it is even born. It's 100% safe for the mother because all she has to provide is a blood sample. So these can be collected by a nurse, a midwife, or one of our sample collectors. You can do it from the 7th week of pregnancy, so it can be taken at the very early stages, but most commonly with legal cases, it's taken towards the end of pregnancy. And the reason that this normally happens is because the amount of fetal DNA within a mother's bloodstream will increase throughout her pregnancy. And doing the test at a later stage of pregnancy is likely to yield the most amount of fetal DNA. So we'll get a much better profile from the baby the later we are into pregnancy. So why would we do this kind of testing? It's really to develop safeguarding plans early. It means that when that baby is born, action can be taken straight away. The baby can go directly where we've planned for it to go. It'll reduce the care costs. There won't be as much toing and froing. And essentially, there'll be fewer moves for that baby between caring individuals. So this test is accepted by UK courts, and we have done a lot of these for the legal sector. They are becoming much more common, and people are really seeing the benefit of knowing the paternity of a child before it is born. Another development is Y chromosome testing. So this is a powerful test that can be used to work out whether two people are paternally related to each other. So males have an X chromosome and a Y chromosome, and when they have a daughter, they will pass on their X chromosome. When they have a son, they will pass on their Y chromosome. In both cases, the X and the Y are passed on exactly as they are. They don't change. So when we look at the Y chromosome, all males within a paternal lineage will share an exact same Y chromosome profile. So this is a really good test to use for male siblings. So if two males want to know whether they share the same father, the Y chromosome test is a really, really strong and powerful test that is often overlooked. We can also test other types of sample. So the majority of our samples, we are asking for a buccal swab sample. We ask for blood from the mother in the prenatals. But sometimes the person is deceased, unavailable, unwilling to provide a buccal swab sample. And in those cases, we look to use different sample types. So these can be nail samples, preferably toenails, but fingernail clippings are also acceptable. These can easily be collected by funeral homes, by coroners, and returned to the lab for testing under a chain of custody. We can also request muscle tissue, or occasionally we receive samples from coroners and pathologists that are like histology slides, that are sections of heart, liver, lung, whatever samples have been collected during autopsy. We can also test toothbrushes. So the toothbrushes need to be well used. It can't just be a a once used toothbrush. It has to be somebody's well used toothbrush that can be sent in, and we can extract a DNA profile from that, or we can test blood. And then just very briefly, the challenges in DNA testing, I've mentioned it throughout, it's about inconclusive results. And this is where we just don't have enough evidence to say one way or another whether people are related or not. So we've got a few things that we can do. We can include more DNA markers. We often call this an extended study. We can include more biological relatives, and we can build up a more complex family tree scenario to test. Or we can look to these alternate DNA markers like the Y chromosome. So what we'll do is, if you get an inconclusive result, we will make every effort to avoid presenting that back to you. So we'll discuss it with you. We'll work out, are there any additional tests that we can perform, any extra people that we can test, and we'll try to avoid getting you an inconclusive result. We will be upfront and honest, and we will discuss it with you and talk through if we're having any challenges. Now it's time for the closing poll.
That's great. Thanks, Casey. So I'm just going to launch the closing poll in a moment. Thank you for those of you who have put some questions through. There are a few there now. If anybody's got any other questions, then please do use this opportunity now to send those through to us. I'll just run the closing poll, and then we will do the Q&A session. So just to finish off with the last poll, just going to launch it now. Just simply one last question. Has your knowledge of the latest developments and challenges improved as a result of today's webinar? And you've got 3 choices there. Please do give us your honest feedback. It's very important to us. I'll just give you a few moments to answer that. Okay, I think most of you have answered that now. So thank you. I'm just going to end the poll and just briefly share those results with you. So really positive. So 86% feel that it has been beneficial. The other 14% of you say to a certain extent, but perhaps you'd like to know some more. So again, really positive. Thank you to all of you for completing that. So I'm just going to stop sharing that now. So Casey, what questions have we got?
Yeah, so we've got some good ones actually. The first one is about the sample donor photographs and whether that's a new thing. So at every legal collection, we will take a photograph of the person that the sample has been collected from, and we'll take a photograph of their ID. And so this has just been used to prove that we have collected the sample from the correct person. The samples are then sealed and signed by that individual with tamper-proof tape. And when it's received into the lab, we can be sure that the sample hasn't been tampered with, and we have photos through the process. We have now added that onto the statement of witness report. So it's now included as part of that report. It is relatively new, and we think it just really helps to give that level of assurance that there has been no tampering with these samples at all, and this is the person who was there at the collection. And we have actually had it before where the alleged father, the mother, has looked at the report and said, that's the alleged father's best friend, he sent his friend in his place, and like they've been able to see that it wasn't the correct person, and then they've taken action on that one. Another question that we've got here is, why would toenails be preferable to fingernails? Really good question. So the reason that we always ask for toenails first is because there's less chance of contamination. Your toes are generally in your socks, in your shoes, and they don't really touch other people, whereas your fingernails are much more likely to become contaminated with other people's DNA if you're touching them, if you're touching things when you're out and about. And so we have seen that sometimes you can get contamination in fingernails. So toenails are preferable. We've got another question here. Does it cost more to request a statement of witness report? And is it possible to request both reports? I'll have to hand over to Andrew about the costs, but I would say that in the standard report, everything that's contained in that standard report is also in the statement of witness with a little bit more information. So I don't think you would need both if you were going for a statement of witness.
Yeah, and just on that, the standard report is included as part of the testing fee. If you do require a statement of witness, then there is an extra charge for that. We can discuss that with you at the time of when you request a particular quotation. Okay, I think we're done with the questions. That's great. Right, so just to finish off, so the AlphaBiolabs promise, any sort of DNA testing that we might do for you, we issue the results next day as standard following receipt of the sample into the lab. However, we can provide same-day results if required. We are accredited by the Ministry of Justice, and we have UCAS accreditations ISO 17025 and ISO 9001. And also for prenatal paternity testing, we are currently the only UCAS accredited provider in the UK. Now, we're also running a special promotion at the moment for any type of legal DNA testing. Up until the end of October, we will offer a 30% discount. In order to do that, you can contact us on our usual number, 0333 600 1300, or you can send an email to our testing team, testing@alphabiolabs.com, and just need to quote DNA 30 to get that discounted price in your personal quotation. Alternatively, you can visit our website, alphabiolabs.com, where you can request a quotation online. Okay, so just to finish off, please do get in touch with us. We are the experts in legal DNA, drug and alcohol testing. Our main methods of contact are on the screen there for you. If you're on social media, LinkedIn and Twitter, we're on there. So please do look us up and give us a follow, and we'll follow you back. Finally, just want to mention our Giving Back campaign. You can see on the right of the screen there. So we pledge for every instruction we receive from you, we'll donate £5 to 4 incredible charities who support some of the UK's most vulnerable children and families. It's just another reason to choose AlphaBiolabs. So it remains for me just to say thank you very much for your time this morning. Before you log off, there will be a very short post-webinar survey. If you could kindly complete that, I think there's just 3 short questions on there. That would, again, be really good feedback for us for the future planning of these webinars. You will receive an email from us tomorrow with a recording of this webinar and also answers to the questions that have been asked today. So finally, thank you very much again for your time, and hopefully we'll see you very soon on a future AlphaBiolabs webinar. Thank you very much to Casey as well. So have a good day, everybody, and see you soon. Thank you. Bye.